Welcome everyone. Lovely to gather again for the Young Dementia Network Tea Time webinars. Today it's Continuity and Stability, and before I hand over to our lovely panelists, I'm going to just remind you that the chat and the Q&A are the ways that you as attendees can contribute, and we do hope to hear from you all. Don't forget to change your setting to panelists and attendees for the chat. The panelists are going to be on camera and on mic the whole time, unless they choose otherwise. But otherwise, I think that's it. And very warm welcome to you. And let me hand over to Jules, Hannah and Lizzie.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jules Knight. I'm a consultant Admiral Nurse and I work for the charity Dementia UK. And my role is primarily to support the development of young onset dementia Admiral Nurses in the UK with host organisations and to help sustain the services moving forward. I've worked as an Admiral Nurse for over 20 years, and throughout that time I've consistently worked with families affected by young onset dementia. And because of that, Tessa and I have known each other for many years, and we're now working very closely together in Dementia UK. I'd like to introduce you to Lizzie Harrison, who's a young onset dementia Admiral Nurse working in Berkshire, and to Hannah Wrankmore, who is a family carer supporting her husband Neil, who has young onset dementia. And Lizzie supported Hannah for a number of years, and this afternoon they're going to share some of their story, really with the theme of continuity, so how an Admiral Nurse has provided that continuity and stability, and that will be a theme of the conversation. But firstly, I'm going to hand over to Lizzie, and she's going to talk a little bit about Admiral Nursing for those of you that don't know about it. So thank you, Lizzie. I'm going to go on mute while you do this, by the way, Lizzie.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Lizzie Harrison, as Jules has said. I'm an Admiral Nurse that specialises in young onset dementia, supporting families affected by young onset, and I'm based in Berkshire. I'm going to start by just really sort of introducing what Admiral Nurses are and what we do. So if I can have the first slide, Jules, please. So Admiral Nurses came about after the experience of the family of a gentleman known as Joseph, his name was Joseph Levy, following their poor experience of care when he was diagnosed and throughout the sort of, progression of his illness. They felt so strongly about this that they actually started raising awareness about the importance of supporting the care of families affected by dementia, because families are intrinsically linked to the people that they care for, and supporting them is vital in terms of also supporting the person with dementia. So Admiral Nurses are specialist nurses with extensive experience in the field of dementia. They work in lots of different settings throughout the country, both in England, Wales and Scotland. There are, I think, approximately 300 Admiral Nurses across the UK now, supported by the charity Dementia UK, and they're constantly looking at opportunities to develop services further. Admiral Nurses work in a variety of different roles. Some are in the community, some are in acute hospitals. There are Admiral Nurses in palliative care, as well as lots of other places like care homes as well. So they support a range of different people, whether it's individual Admiral Nurse roles or teams of Admiral Nurses. Can I have the next slide, please, Jules? So what do? I mean, Admiral Nurses are involved in a whole range of different aspects of care. They support families in terms of helping them understand what's happening in relation to dementia through education, through practical support. They provide emotional and psychological support. They help aid communication between lots of different other services. They advocate for families. They do whatever a family needs them to do in terms of what's important to the family at the time that the Admiral Nurse becomes involved with them. They really, first of all, provide a holistic, family-centred assessment of need in terms of what that family are requiring at the time that they have a referral to an Admiral Nurse service, but specifically look at what is important to the family at that time as well. So they develop a very person-centred, tailored and flexible care plan to help support the needs of the family at that time. The subject of our webinar today is about continuity and stability. And the other important thing to mention in terms of the Admiral Nurse Service is that they provide support when support's needed. Not everyone might need an Admiral Nurse. I mean, some people just need signposting services and linking up with other services. You know, there are other support services available, like dementia care advisors, that often are involved when someone is diagnosed. And they can help link up to valuable other services and supports, and that might be sufficient for people. Admiral nurses tend to deal with more complex situations, and you know, as an Admiral nurse who works with young onset dementia in particular, the complexities associated with families supporting a loved one with young onset can be actually very, very complex and difficult because of lots of different aspects, such as financial implications. People might still be in work. They might, you know, have lost their job because of not being able to manage as effectively because of the dementia. They might have a longer time of being actually diagnosed. People with young onset tend to, it takes almost twice as long on average to get a diagnosis, because it's not as recognised as having dementia in older adults. People tend to get more rarer forms of dementia, which, you know, is harder to pick up, and also harder to engage people with services. People may have other dependents. People have children, you know, still living at home, which it's hard enough dealing with the changes that having a diagnosis brings in any setting. But, you know, if you've also got young children at home, you're trying to manage things on so many different levels. And, you know, that is very, very challenging for families. So, sorry, Jules, can we just go on to the next slide? So some of the sort of things that we might get involved with, or the points or times that an Admiral nurse may be asked to support a family, maybe in terms of giving emotional support for the carer, because they're trying to adapt and adjust to this complete change in what they expected, you know, to be happening in their life at this time. They might need practical training and information advice, making choices and decisions. You know, the dynamics in relationships change drastically when someone gets a diagnosis of dementia, and suddenly the person who is looking after them has to take on all these extra responsibilities that maybe they've had no experience of doing. There may be conflicts in families. You know, we live in a society now where we have, you know, maybe blended families, people who are second marriages. So you've got lots of different people with different opinions that want to support the person with dementia, but that can also cause conflict and difficulties as well. So it's very important to have someone that can be objective and can help settle or support some of these issues affecting sort of wider family issues. Another important aspect of the Admiral Nursing Service is the education and support for other formal carers. For instance, Admiral Nurses supporting carers in care homes and nursing homes. And, you know, our other team members that may not have as much experience, particularly in particularly specialised areas of dementia care. And also in terms of raising the profile of dementia care, and particularly looking at a family-centred approach to delivering care for people suffering from dementia and their families. So really that's a little bit, I mean, the other important thing that I need to mention is Dementia UK, the charity. They are the home of Admiral Nurses. They provide ongoing support and professional development for our Admiral Nurses so that we are delivering the best possible evidence-based care that is current, and that we are giving families and people with dementia the best support that is currently available. So I think that sort of brings me to the end of what an Admiral Nurse does, I think. So I'm going to introduce you to Hannah. Hannah and I have been working together since her husband, Neil, was diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's disease back in 2015. So
ages.
It is an awful long time, and I feel very much part of the family because we've known each other for so long. But you know, when we were thinking about setting up this webinar today, Hannah's experience and all the things that her and her family have encountered really epitomises the importance of the need to have continuity of one person that someone can go to help support them in so many different aspects of care and need, and, you know, having to adapt to changing situations. And particularly because at the time of Neil's diagnosis, their children were only 5 and 6, I think, yes, at the time when I first became involved. So, you know, that just brings about a whole another layer of, you know, support that needed to be looked at and addressed at a very early stage, because this whole family were affected by, you know, this roller coaster and this, you know, huge change in their life circumstances that affected them all.
But we were fortunate. I mean, I think we were the first or second family that you dealt with younger children, although mine were younger than than Joe's family. But it was only the second, you know, with primary school age children that you had to deal with. And again, I was lucky in that, and I totally realised how lucky I would be, based in the fact that you were the first young onset dementia specialised dementia nurse, and you happened to work for the area where we were living in. And equally,
I was the second, actually.
Second, so sorry, I'm giving you kudos. Didn't have seconds, but
either way, shout out to my first colleague.
But it kind of brings it home that in that time when I was kind of going through it, that you were learning your job dealing with children, but I happened to be the lucky person that was there to do it all, because we very much found out when you started working with me how little there is for younger onset dementia when you've got school-age children. Even though we talk about young onset dementia being people under the age of 65, most people don't actually have, or you know, it still tends to be the late 50s, early 60s that get the majority of people with a diagnosis. So therefore, most people that age kind of have older children. Because Neil was only 51 and he'd had a second family, so he'd had these children later, we kind of were in quite I say unique, but it actually isn't unique. You know, there's lots of us in the country. It's just how we find each other to support each other. I don't know. But that's kind of what the issue, wasn't it? It was just like, okay, where do I go for help? There's lots of books about grandparents with dementia. There's lots of talk about that, but there weren't any books for me to turn to give my girls about parents with dementia. And it's a very different kettle of fish when it's your dad or your mum, as opposed to your grandparent. It's, you know, and I know that there's the initial bit when you kind of were given to us as a contact, it was me kind of floundering with the yes, my husband's got dementia. How do I tell my children, or what do I tell my children, and how do I deal with them and deal with the grief and the devastation that I felt about my husband having it? It was just a big hodgepodge of stress, wasn't it? A cauldron of stress, just kind of, and how
and I think you know, again, it's you're having to deal with so many emotions in your own right, but obviously you're you know, having such young children, you're so protective, you know, that becomes such a focus for you, but it's trying to balance all of your needs. So it's trying to sort of, you know, give you an out. I think when I first met you, it was like, oh my God, this situation, what do I do? Where do I start? Yeah, rabbit in headlights, and, you know, just all the emotions, and just, you know, having an outlet for them in the first place. But, you know, as time went on, I suppose it's just, you know, that we sort of developed a way of dealing with different issues at different times. But, you know, there was always that sort of, you know, sort of acknowledgement that we need to find ways of helping the children understand what's happening as well.
Yeah, I think that's it, because you I don't know, you know, if people are listening, whether they're dealing with someone with a diagnosis, or you kind of go through plateaus. I think you kind of, right, you know, like there's the diagnosis, right, okay, we've got to get our heads around this, and Neil's capabilities at the moment are this, so I can get the children, I can shore up with friends and support, and we can deal with this. Then as the illness progresses, you suddenly go, oh, right, okay, now we're down at this level. Okay, now I've got to adapt, and I've got to change, and I've got to reduce my hours, I've got to get more babysitting, I've got to get more support. The girls need some support, so how do I go about that? You know, and then I think that's what I found the advantage of having you, is that when we've kind of suddenly found ourselves at the next level and needing, and okay, got to reassess and go through it, I've been able to speak to you and go, right, okay, this is going on now. A, is it normal, or B, or what can we do? And you know, and also, you know, I was quite proactive in getting support for the girls. That was as much as it was for Neil as well. Actually, he was kind of dealing with it in his own way, but I've got to be honest with you, my priority was the children, was how are they dealing with it, how are they going to do it? And when I'm planning and preparing for the future and thinking about all that, is they are paramount. And again, the difference with young onset and other is that the care and the way they set up dementia is all very dementia centric, and, you know, getting into the person with dementia's world and all that. And actually that isn't how it can be when you've got so small children, because you can't kind of say, they know at 5 and 6, and I know, you know, they're only 12 and 11 now, and they've got a great deal of empathy now, really. They're much better than they were, but they're still, you know, now we're getting into the pre-teen stages, which is, you know, that's all about me, isn't it, by its very nature. And therefore say, well, actually, yes, that's fine, but actually this is what's happening with your dad. Can you kind of take your head off? And it's a lot to expect of them. And so therefore, you know, the school were very good, weren't they? The school, you know, I went straight, as soon as I got the diagnosis, I went straight to the school and kind of sobbed on the head teacher's desk and was like, right, this is happening, I need some help. You know, I wasn't afraid of letting people know. I wasn't afraid of asking for help from the school and sharing with it. And, you know, and I was lucky in that Neil and I, at the very early stages, discussed how we were going to handle it. And we discussed, and he was, yeah, I'm not going to be embarrassed by it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a disease. I'm going to be open about it. I'm going to tell my friends, I'm going to tell my family, we're going to tell the girls. And having that, I do think that having that open and honest attitude to it has helped us, because therefore we could sit down with the girls and say, look, daddy's got something wrong with his memory. That's why he's shouting at you. That's why he's forgetting. That's why he forgot to pick you up from school. That's why he is telling you to clean your teeth 7 times tonight. That's why this is all happening, because daddy's got something wrong with him. He's got his memory issues. And if you kind of explain to them, you know, because they pick up on things, don't they? Children, you know, you can't pretend something's not happening. And so we just kind of that, and therefore it meant, you know, I went to the school and said, right, you know, Neil's been diagnosed, please can you help us? And you know, they did assemblies, they all became dementia friends, they held bake sales. I'm not saying they normalized it, but it meant that the girls could not be embarrassed or could talk about it, or if daddy wasn't there to pick them up from school, the teachers knew to ask that friend, or the teachers knew just to hold them on a bit, or to ring me and he'd turn up, and that's just kind of.
And that's, I mean, that's that in your situation, that openness helped enormously. I mean, that's the difficulty in some other families, that they don't have that, you know, the person with dementia might not have the insight or might not want to share that information. You've got other families where children don't want to talk about it, don't want to share with friends, which again adds further complications, and, you know, just, you know, demonstrates the even greater need to develop, you know, bespoke or better support systems for children affected by a parent with onset, because, you know, there are resources, or there's, you know, quite a few resources relating to, you know, when granny and granddad has dementia, but as we found, there are little to no resources available actually specific to children affected with a parent with young onset. Yeah,
I know, and it is a difficult kettle of fish when it's one of your primary caregivers who's the one, you know, and the, you know, the balance of their relationship. Now Millie and Bessie help Neil, you know, they help him get dressed, they get his breakfast ready, they have to turn the shower on for him, they have to, you know, Millie was mentioning only last night, you know, when daddy got lost on holiday and we had to look for him, and, you know, so their awareness of life is, and, you know, that's their parent, and they're very aware that their other friends' parents aren't like that, which is why I could kind of loop back, which is the other thing where, you know, a few years down the line that you helped us by introducing us with the other family on the other side of Berkshire. And in the end, it was kind of 4 families we got together, didn't we, at the art therapy. And although there was kind of an age range, and they didn't specifically chat about their parents, but they just had an affinity. And meeting those 6 weekly sessions, didn't they, you know, and they just were able to mix with other children that kind of got it without having to say it out loud. And the other parents of us, we've obviously, it's the past years, it's gone on hold, but we did try and still keep in contact about once every 6 months. And you can see, you know, we went bowling the last time, and you could just see that the kids just are relaxed in each other's company because they all get it, you know, in and they're not talking about it, you know, but we 3 of us didn't take our husband, actually it was the husbands, didn't take our husbands, but you know, the lady with dementia, one of the mothers was there who has dementia, and it was fine, you know, it wasn't an issue, whereas because everyone understood and was mindful of her, and that's been a big sorry, excuse me, that's been a big support, or it's been a kind of a nice continuity for the girls to have that. Let's say it's just, you know, blooming COVID's trashed loads of things, but that's one, you know, and then I kind of kept up kind of we would, what about every 3 months or so, you know, the other parents and I would go out for a meal, and just it's much easier to chat to people who are in the same boat, even if you have lots of great friends. Their life level, you know, stage of life that they're at is very different to when you're have a partner with dementia. It's just, I'm thinking about care homes, I'm thinking about carers, and it's not for my parents, I'm thinking for my husband, and it's not, I shouldn't be thinking about that at 47. That shouldn't be what I'm thinking about my partner in those terms. That's not how you plan, it's not what you think, but you are, and
but it's also important that you have, the opportunity to talk about those emotions as well, because you're constantly having to deal with changes, and you're having to face losses that you weren't expecting to experience at this point in your life, and it's hard to speak to friends about that when their lifestyles are so different, and they're looking forward to coming out of lockdown and all the things that they can do again, whereas you're thinking things are progressing, and actually my
lockdown's getting worse. That's what the irony thing is.
It's how to manage that, isn't it? And it's how to sort of deal with that on a day-to-day basis. And I think again, going back to the theme of this webinar about the continuity, and part of the role of the Admiral Nurse is also to sort of help you develop some sort of feeling of stability and being able to carry on, and so sort of to deal with things. So it's not like we're in each other's on the phone speed dialing all the time. It's like life goes on, and you have got on with life, and you have dealt with things in different ways, and then we've sort of dipped in and out of different times when you felt that you needed that extra support, and it's having that sort of that go-to person that you need, that you can just sort of reach out to and say, I'm really struggling at the moment. I'm not quite sure how to manage this.
Well, no, I was going to say, when it was in lockdown last year in the summer, wasn't it? I was like, I rang you up to say, oh, Neil's not coping very well. He's doing this, he's doing that. And after half an hour of phone call, you're like, so who was it that wasn't coping very well? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, it was me. Okay, hands up. Yeah, it was me that wasn't coping very well. But equally, I'm very mindful, or I wasn't that self-aware then, isn't it? But if I'm not coping well, then no one in the family copes well. And it all kind of,
which just reinforces the importance of looking at things holistically and providing support for the whole family, which is exactly what Admiral Nurses do. It's those times when you were finding it really difficult with behavioural changes, or when Neil wasn't so well, and were really sort of strung out about things. It's that being able to have someone to help you look objectively at the situation, and
and the fact that this is what's your family. So it's that's what I found in the benefit of the dementia nurse, and is the fact that you have known us for 6 years, so you know my personality, you've got to know me, but equally you've got to know what Neil likes and how he what button, not saying what buttons to press, but how we can get through to him, or what will work with him. And also, my girls are quite lively, and so therefore what might work with other children isn't, and it's okay. And because you've got to know us, therefore you can kind of listen to what the issues are and go and come up with solutions in a way that other nursing services or the GP, pretty rubbish if I'm honest, hasn't been able to. And through the role of the dementia nurse is allowed that, and I've, as I said, at the beginning, I'm ever so grateful the fact that I live in an area that is covered by a dementia nurse, and I and I do, because I as a result, or you put me forward, I do work on the Dementia UK advisory panel, where there's, so our basically role is to speak to Dementia UK when you've got experience of people who lived experience, isn't it? To advise them and give them advice, and when as part of that, I've spoken to lots of people who haven't had a dementia nurse to access, and you realise how vital it's been in my ability to keep our family on a mainly even keel, how that's helped me, and I'm very grateful for it, and hence why I'm happy to do these types of things to promote it. it's a shame that there isn't one in every area, because it makes such a difference, but there aren't.
Not at the moment, but you know, that's the development of the dementia, the Admiral Nurse Service has you know, escalated over the years since I've been an Admiral. I've been an Admiral Nurse for 6 years. I think there was 124 in post when I started, and there's now over 300 people and more services being developed. So I think the more that people know about, you know, the support that Admiral Nurses can provide, and the more that we promote it, that hopefully the more services will start up in, you know, the places that currently don't have that support available. Even though there is the Admiral Nurse Helpline, which we will talk about a little bit further in the webinar, that can sort of cover some of that support need.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I've been quite proactive in learning about dementia and learning about what's available, and again mainly led via the fact that I've got young children, and you know, my girls took part in a study quite early on when they were young, and you know, and you read the reviews of that study, and you know, as one would expect, you know, if you look out for any studies into how it affects children when they've got a parent with dementia, it can be quite negative for them. Aspects, you know, educational and anxiety and all these sort of negative outputs that, you know, they do sometimes, you know, give some benefits, you know, caring and empathetic and independence. You know, there are some advantages. You know, my girls are very independent for their age, but all these studies with these kind of negative aspects that you worry about, you know, especially at the moment, you know. But you read the conclusions, and then it's like, yes, but what's going to happen with this? You know what? You know, I researched this, quite a few studies I found, and I can pass on the details. But it's like, yes, okay, so yes, it's detrimental to have a parent with dementia. What next? And that's the bit I'm like, okay, so we recognise it's tough for our kids. So what can we do about it? And that's what I get frustrated at, and that's why I find it difficult, you know. And I know you're working with locally to do stuff, and I know Dementia UK are looking at it at the moment. And
no, definitely. And I mean, you know, from having been involved with you from sort of right at the start, from when I became an Admiral Nurse, and recognised, you know, the gap in this service, you know, we have developed a children's resource group with lots of people from different areas to look at developing resources and working with, you know, developing toolkits for schools to help support families affected by dementia, not just young onset dementia, because, you know, as children with grandparents with dementia, as well as, you know, having a direct parents, and that's continuing, and that's growing in strength. And, you know, we've also recently got in contact with Kooth.com, which are an online mental well-being service for young people, that we are going to be sort of, you know, hopefully working alongside and, you know, sharing that information. Because what we've also found is, you know, support for young people is usually led by each locality, and, you know, particularly because young onset dementia, the numbers affected are much lower than the sort of overall population of people who are diagnosed with dementia. You need something that is, you know, much wider and available, you know, to lots of different people over a wide area. So it needs to be more centralised. So, you know, we've come up with some interesting, you know, ideas, and we'll continue to move forward and develop that, and hopefully develop much more useful resources for children and for parents to support their children when their, you know, parent is diagnosed.
Because it's rubbish.
It's getting better though.
No, I mean, it's rubbish dealing with the diagnosis. It's heartbreaking.
It is.
There's no, you know, it just is, isn't it?
No, that's the reality. But life goes on, and it's about finding ways to continue living life. And, you know, looking at, you know, situation with Bessie, your younger child, and Neil, you know, when they weren't seeing eye to eye in terms of how they were managing, or, you know, Bessie was being a child, as a child is. Neil wasn't able to cope with, you know, responding to her as he would, you know, prior to his diagnosis. And, you know, that led to lots of issues. And, you know, that.
But now we've got a cookbook out of it.
Now you've got a cookbook.
Ladies,
you know,
I was just about to ask you that, actually, about the Bessie Bakes book that's up on the screen.
Yeah, well, that was in direct response to me ringing Lizzie up saying, the pair of them are doing my head in, I can't cope, it's just going bonkers. And she was kind of like, well, finding something that they can both do together. And they just kind of started making biscuits together in lockdown, and he would accept, that was kind of the area where he would accept that she could tell him what to do and they could work together. And it kind of just morphed from that into her emailing all our friends and family to say, please can you share me your favourite recipes and give me the memory of why it's your favourite recipe so I can cook it and keep occupied and help keep my mum sane. And luckily we have a neighbour friend who is also a publisher and editor, and she was like, this is fabulous, come on, we must make it into a book. And she's German and very organised and bossy, and we're like, yes, okay, and helped, encouraged us to kind of do it all. And it was a really good project. It was good for my mental health to help have something positive to do. It was really good for Bessie. I've probably put on a stone in weight doing all the tasting, but hey. And Neil's really proud of it. You can see he can't really articulate it greatly at the moment, but you can see how proud he is of her, and that's really nice for them to have that thing.
And just the joy of, you know, before the book was developed, you know, that activity of them just, you know, suddenly from being at loggerheads with each other to actually coming home and finding them giggling or eating all their cookies that they cooked together. And
it was a shared experience where they just been living.
Lovely.
Yeah, whereas previously their only shared interaction had been arguing and shouting. No.
There's lots of questions in the chat box, people asking where they can get support from. And just to say, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Admiral Nurse Dementia Helpline, and that's a resource that you can all use to get support from. So there's a few questions as well that have come up in the chat box and within our Q&A box as well. One of them is actually asking how many young onset Admiral nurses we have, Lizzie, and I think at the moment it's 4, isn't it, in the UK, which isn't obviously many at all.
There's 2
specialists.
of us in Berkshire.
There's one at Imperial, and we have
rare dementias.
One in the rare dementia support service, and hopefully another one very shortly. We're due to interview this week. We have, as Lizzie was saying, there's over 300 Admiral nurses, but specialist young onset nurses, we're looking at very small numbers. But the plan for Dementia UK is to develop further young onset Admiral nurse posts, and I'm heavily involved with that with Tessa moving forward. Bessie's Bakes is a lovely book. It makes a great gift. That's one of the comments. Lots of people asking where resources are, and we can talk about the helpline in a moment. That's going to be really helpful, I think. People thanking you, Hannah, for sharing your experiences. We have a question in the Q&A. Is support provided virtually by Admiral nurses, as that wouldn't matter geographically? I'm going to talk about the helpline in a second and explain that. So yes, there is support out there. One of the things that struck me, Lizzie, when you started the conversation was actually how honest and open you were with Hannah about you needing to develop your experience in working with children, young children. And that really hit home, actually. Yeah,
well, I mean, you know, I have children of my own, but, you know, it was when you know, I've been working as a nurse for over 35 years, and you know, I've got quite extensive experience in dementia, but it really hit home when I first started working with Hannah and other young families of, oh my goodness, you know, the impact on children, they say. And sorry, are we freezing?
Yeah, I think you were freezing a bit, Lizzie, but it's the perfect time to do it if you are.
Is it my time to shoot?
Not quite, but you know, if you're going to freeze, now would be the right time rather than at the beginning.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, the concern is the long-term impact on children, it's mental health, you know, they're not reaching their potential if they're not giving the right support and resources, you know, when they are under such difficult sort of, you know, a family situation, you know, particularly in their formative years. It's hard enough for young adults, but young children specifically, we need to make sure that we are supporting their needs and, you know, raising awareness that when we're working with families with young onset, that we really need to be thinking about how the children are supported as well.
It's just kind of, I suppose, to emphasise it, because it's kind of chats we've been having this week with the girls. It's just small things like, you know, we can't go on summer holiday this year now because Neil can't cope with leaving a house, and the girls are like, oh, what, you mean we're not going? And it's pretty hard when you're 11 and 12, you know. And I know, fortunate that previously we've been able to go, but we can't, you know, we always used to go camping, and that's out of the question now. He can't cope with a tent anymore. And I was saying, well, you know, you could go for a weekend with your friends, and you could just see that actually they want to go with us as a family, and it's just another level that you have to deal with that you don't as a grandparent, you don't when they're older, and it just is all, you know, even before my personal, oh my God, these four walls, is this all I've got for another year? I've got my own, but it just is different levels that you just have to try. And my main abiding overarching thing is always, how can I try and normalize it or make it so it's as normal for the girls an upbringing and a childhood as I can. And it's always a juggling and a strain, but it just, I suppose, with everything opening up and hopefully summer being more normal, it's a bit like, okay, it won't be for us then, but you know, you have to deal with these other issues, don't you? Sorry, that's like to a halt.
No, it's, I mean, it's, you know, it's, I think just, I don't, you know, just talking about really the children just demonstrates the complexities that you face as a family. And, you know, although we have, you know, looked at all different aspects from all of your different perspectives throughout the time that we've known each other, you know, because life goes on, other things happen as well, other losses, you know.
Yeah, let's not go there.
You know, then, you know, and the challenges of trying to get things sorted with work and finances and, you know, securing benefits, you know, there's been all sorts of different aspects of things that we've dealt with along the time that we've been, you know, involved with each other. But fundamentally, the importance for you, the overriding importance for you and for Neil, if, you know,
no,
because that's what Neil would have felt was looking after the children. And, you know, it comes back to what I was saying at the beginning, that it's vitally important for us as Admiral Nurses to recognise, you know, we're going into a situation, we're doing holistic assessments, but we have to hear what is most important for the family in order to sort of walk that path with them and try and hold them along the way when they need that support.
Is that the minute up?
Yeah.
I didn't see the minute.
Didn't you? Ladies, thank you very much for just speaking so eloquently about how Hannah, how Lizzie supported you, and Lizzie, how you've grown and developed as an Admiral nurse actually as well. It's
See, I've helped you, Lizzie.
You see, I need all the help I can get, believe me, ongoingly.
But I know from speaking to Lizzie that actually thinking about the support that children need and young adults need, it's something that's very much on our radar. And I know Lizzie's done a lot of work and has started getting a lot of people interested in developing resources. So hopefully things will change as we move forward. So thank you very much, ladies.
Okay, I hope it was interesting for people.
It's very strange not getting feedback, isn't it, when you do these webinars?
It is.
Lots of people in the chat box have been asking about support from Admiral Nurses, and let me just move the slide on. Hopefully this will, there we go. So I've got the details up there for the contacts for the Admiral Nurse Dementia Helpline, and the helpline was set up, I think it was around 2005, and
Let's say hello.
There's someone coming to say hello.
They just got back from school, that was all.
Oh, hello. Hello.
Hiya.
Hi.
Very nice to see you and meet you. You probably don't want to listen to the presentation on Admiral Nursing. But essentially the helpline was set up around 2005, and it was kind of set up by accident actually, because Dementia UK was getting calls from family carers who needed support. And to address this, they employed an Admiral nurse who used to pick up the phone calls and call any carers back. I think in 2005, on the next slide, roughly, we had about 80 callers, and that was over the whole year. So not a lot actually, but you know, the charity wasn't particularly well known, and they certainly weren't advertising the helpline as a resource at that stage. It's a very small charity, and really we are still quite a small charity actually when you compare us to the big league players like the Alzheimer's Society. But in response to having these calls, as I say, an Admiral nurse was employed, and in 2007 they actually officially launched the helpline, and I helped set it up. So I've got fond memories of ending up on BBC News 24 without any media training, and I really was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. It was the days before webinars or, you know, things being videoed, so it really was quite scary. But anyway, the helpline opened in 2007, and initially we literally had 2 evenings a week. And you can see from 2013, we only had 3,235 calls that year. If we move down to November 19, you can see that actually the number of calls we're getting has massively increased. And I know since the lockdown and the start of the pandemic, I think we could add thousands upon thousands to those numbers as well. I wasn't able to get the most up-to-date figures in time actually, so apologies for that. But essentially, the helpline is open 7 days a week. So it's from 9 till 9, Monday to Friday. And at the weekend, it's 9 to 5. And it's open all bank holidays except for Christmas Day. And essentially, the helpline is there to support families affected by dementia. So we probably get the majority of our calls from family carers, but we're also there to support people who are living with a diagnosis of dementia. And actually we'll also support professionals who are working with families affected by dementia. So if professionals are struggling, they're always welcome to give us a call to get that expert advice. So although I now work as a consultant Admiral nurse and the majority of my time is spent supporting the development of new services, actually I still work on the helpline. I can't help myself. I do a couple of shifts a month, and essentially it's because I really enjoy working on the helpline, and it's really good for me to have a really good understanding of what it's like out there still for people. I don't want to not have that experience, so I still feel very connected with the helpline. Listed there, we've got the top 5 reasons why people call us, and you know, the main one is accessing local support. And often it's quite a mystery to our callers what that support might be, where they can find it, particularly if a family calls that's affected by young onset, because there often isn't specific services and it's rather like hunting around for a needle in a haystack, trying to find a service that can support you. So we're very happy to try and help families find that support. We're also very happy to support people in seeing if they've got an Admiral nurse in their area. We do have a website, Dementia UK website, and we do have a map, an interactive map, but actually it can still be a bit of a challenge knowing whether there isn't actually an Admiral nurse in your area. And that's because, as Lizzie was saying earlier, they're employed in different settings. So it might be a hospice setting, it might be a community setting, it might be an acute hospital setting. So they may be listed on our map, but it might not be a service that's appropriate for your needs. So we would always suggest people ring, and we can help you find an Admiral nurse if there is one in your area. We'll help with giving advice on kind of managing behaviour. And by that, I mean, things that we're finding difficult to manage, things that are challenging. We can offer ideas and strategies for supporting somebody. We also offer emotional and psychological support to anyone that calls. So if someone's experienced a diagnosis and they're struggling with that, then we can support them. If a family member's struggling because they're supporting someone with dementia and it's really difficult, the transitions, how things are changing, again, we can offer that emotional support and those strategies to put in place. We can also talk about what care options are out there. Again, this can be really difficult because everything differs from borough to borough in London, from county to county outside London. So it can be really challenging to know what's out there, but we're very happy to help with that. Our helpline's run by real nurses, so real Admiral nurses actually will pick up the phone to you. The ladies in the pictures there, obviously this is pre-pandemic, they're in the office, but at the top we've got Vicky and at the bottom we've got the deputy manager of the helpline, Paulette. So a real person will pick up that phone. If the helpline's busy, you will sometimes have to leave a message, but they do get back to you very quickly. And I think the important things to know about the helpline is that the support they offer is bespoke. It's not based on algorithms. It's not like phoning 111. It's really person-centered support and advice. You can email. There's an email address that you can also email into if you prefer that. And again, the details are on this presentation, but they're also on the resources list that's going to be sent out. So just to say, I'll reiterate, we're open 7 days a week, Monday to Fridays 9 till 9, and Saturday and Sunday is 9 to 5. And as I said, the only day at the moment that we aren't open is Christmas Day. So we're there out of hours, which I think is really important because often that's when things get more difficult and those usual regular Monday to Friday 9 to 5 services aren't around. And I think, as you mentioned, Hannah, often when you phone, you know, GP perhaps out of hours or 111, they don't know how to offer that bespoke advice. They don't really understand the needs of a family affected by dementia. So just to reiterate, we are there, and please do use the helpline. And I think that is the end of the presentation. So what I'll do is I'll open the questions again and see if we have any on there. So Caroline's asking, will there be a webinar that focuses on rare dementia, specifically FTD? I think Tessa might be able to answer that question. And let me open the chat box as well. Oh, Hannah's already put her contact details in there.
How about, oh, was that to everybody?
I think it might be. Sorry, Tessa, you've just joined us.
Yes, just to say that the next webinar is rarity, and we will pick up FTD in that webinar. It's going to be Nikki Zimmerman from Rare Dementia Support with several family members and people with young onset, and they're going to be talking through their experience of the rarer dementia. So look out for that, April the 21st.
Thank you. I'm just checking through to see if there's any questions that we need to pick up on. Lots of thank yous, Hannah.
All right. Thank you.
Are there any questions on the helpline that anyone has? So the details of the Rarity webinar have just gone up on the chat box, so that everyone's aware of that. Again, lots of thank yous. Ladies, I can't believe I actually managed to keep you to time as well.
Quite unusual.
Jules, if you have picked up as many questions as you're able to, may I just say thank you so much to all three of you, and especially to Hannah, who the challenges that you face and the way you deal with them is just inspirational. And I can see, Lizzie, how important it is that you take that holistic approach to the support. It's just vital, and the continuity through the years for Millie and Bessie, and for Neil and yourself, Hannah, must have been so valuable, I think. So thank you so much, and thank you to Jules too for taking us through this webinar. As we said, do look out for the recording of this one and all the links, and I hope including to Bessie Speaks, which I definitely recommend. It made a lovely gift at Christmas time, and there's Easter coming up, so have a think about sending it on to somebody as a present. So 21st of April, our next webinar. Join us for tea then, and I hope you've enjoyed this one. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. Thank you.